So I'm Jo Sheward and I'm the i3P Programme Manager. For those of you who are new to i3P Talks With, this is very much an interactive session. So we we have speakers who come along and they cover a broad range of subjects that are always relevant to obviously our infrastructure and built environment sector. It will run for an hour. So Mark will do a presentation followed by Q&A, and I would encourage everyone to please get involved. Anyone interested in being a speaker, or if there's a topic that somebody would be interested in hearing about, please do get in touch. And I will do my best to accommodate. Could I just ask everyone to put themselves on mute, because someone's not on mute and there's quite a bit of background noise. Thank you. Perfect. So on to today. So I'm delighted to introduce Mark Hansford. So he's the technical author of the PAS 4010 and former Director of Engineering Knowledge at the Institute of Civil Engineers. Today, Mark is going to be talking to us about the PAS 4010 and how it aims to improve productivity in UK infrastructure. So I shall now hand over to Mark.
Thanks, Jo. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here. I will just start sharing my screen. Hopefully a screen is appearing with a very pretty picture of lots of different infrastructure all on one slide. Hopefully that's
we can see through. Yep, we
Excellent.
Can see that.
Great. So yes, hi. As Jo said, I'm Mark Hansford, and I've been quite a few on this call will know me. So hello, everybody. And to those who don't, I've been peddling insight in the infrastructure space for longer than I care to imagine. But right now, I am honoured and delighted to have been given the responsibility and, dare I say, the challenge of serving as the technical author for PAS 4010. I'm hasten to immediately add, I'm not doing this alone. I'm very much guided and assisted by a technical advisory group, which is made up of the PAS 4010 co-sponsors, the Department of Transport, and I think Mike's here today. I'm sure David is there in the background somewhere as well, and others in the DFT team and the Institution of Civil Engineers, also a co-sponsor, alongside a select group of productivity specialists who've been shaping this agenda for years. So on the group, we've got two ICE past presidents, Ed McCann and Paul Sheffield, who many of you will know. Also Andy Alder, who's leading a lot of major programs at Anglian Water now, having come there from Tideway, which I think was a project done pretty productively. And also Martin Perks, who was leading the agenda for National Highways for quite a while until recently. So we've got some absolute cracking expertise in the room who've been providing great insight and challenge as we've gone through to get to where we are today. So what have we been up to? I mean, first of all, why PAS 4010? I think we all know the story. UK construction and infrastructure, we've been wrestling with productivity for decades. We know we lose billions every year to things like avoidable error, rework, poor planning, fragmented decision making, misaligned incentives, as the list kind of goes on. But we also know that when our teams get the basics right, when all the behaviours align, and when information flows and decisions are made early and clearly, productivity improves dramatically, and we know this industry can be world leading, and many examples it is. So the problem isn't a lack of knowledge, we would posit it's a lack of a consistent shared system for embedding productivity across the life cycle, and that is the gap that PAS 4010 is designed to fill. So what does it do? Fundamentally, it introduces and establishes a productivity management strategy that runs through the entire project and program lifecycle. And at the most fundamental level, the productivity management strategy is a simple thing. It really just asks projects and teams to do three things. It asks them to carry out some kind of systematic analysis of the drivers of productivity within their project or program. identify the key constraints, risks, and opportunities to improve. It then asks them to produce a plan to manage those constraints and risk and maximize the opportunities, and decide who's best placed to do the things that you're going to do in that plan. And then it requires the teams to set targets against agreed benchmarks and monitor them to enable the plan to be delivered. That's kind of what it says. It's very clear that for this to work, it has to be developed collaboratively within the entire value chain, and that's the entire value chain right down to suppliers. But it also recognises that this productivity management strategy has to be owned and managed by the client on behalf of the project or program team. And it's really clear that for the productivity management strategy to work, it requires leadership from every member of the value chain, supported by the right governance processes. And it then sets out in clear and auditable terms what good looks like at each stage of the project lifecycle, right through from need identification, through planning, design and procurement, and into construction and on into operation. And I think importantly, it defines what every member of the value chain must do at each of those stages to contribute to productivity improvement. There are no vague aspirations in 4010. These are real practical requirements. And when I say things that each member of the value chain must do and that they are practical requirements, I suppose I really mean shall, because PAS 4010 is deliberately been drafted as a specification. It's not a code of practice, it's not a guidance document, it's a specification that sets out, saying clear and auditable terms, what each member of the value chain shall do to be compliant. And that matters because sponsors, Department of Transport and other client bodies who are involved, and the infrastructure client group, are very much supportive of this PAS. I've been absolutely clear that compliance with this specification is something that they intend to embed into contractual requirements, so that the standard and the productivity benefits that it enables are actually adopted in practice. So what are its sort of key features? And I've sort of described really the things that it does do and the things that it doesn't do. What it does do, first and foremost, I think it does several quite important things. First and foremost, it clearly identifies what we actually mean by productivity. As we all know, this has been talked about for a long time. There are very many different definitions of productivity. So in PAS 4010, it defines improving productivity is improving the effectiveness and efficiency at every life stage and every stage of the project life cycle. Effectiveness is about consistently doing the right things, selecting the right projects, making the right design choices, choosing the right delivery models, and choosing the right teams. And then efficiency is then about, when you decide what you're going to do, about doing things right. And so that is things like minimizing waste of materials, waste of effort, waste of energy, waste of carbon emissions, poor land use, and damage to ecosystems. And I think we're very, all the way through, we've been very clear that it is this dual definition really going on within PAS, because I think there's a tendency when we talk about productivity, we lurch straight towards the efficiency end of that, and we start talking about production rates and things like that, and there's clearly there's room to improve our efficiency in delivery. But if you skip straight to that and forget about challenging right at the start, are we doing the right thing, then we miss all the opportunity for big improvements. So it defines what productivity is. Second, it specifies requirements that are intended to have all members of the value chain remove constraints of productivity and tangibly contribute to delivering projects, programs more effectively and efficiently. So it does that. Secondly, it's all about behaviours, and it's really clear about the leadership behaviours which are required to make productivity improvement real, because it's really more than a technical challenge, it's a behavioural one. And so it sets out clear expectations for leadership, collaboration, decision-making and accountability. And really in particular, really importantly, and we've taken from the Carbon Standard 2080 here, the really key need for leaders across the project and all different organizations to create a culture of psychological safety, where people feel confident, comfortable telling the truth about what's happening on their projects, comfortable bringing forward their ideas without fear of any kind of sort of kickback. Because we don't have that culture, then productivity improvements aren't going to take root. So that's key. And you know, thirdly, it really focuses on what works. When you get into the, you know, what we all need to do at different stages of the life cycle, it's really focusing on the basics. It's about error reduction, collaborative planning, real-time insight into labour and plant usage, digital assurance, and having clear roles and responsibilities. There's just some really, really practical stuff in it, which we really hope many, in fact, if the reaction from many people are, we're doing all that already, it's like, well, great. That means you're probably one of the good guys or gals and are doing things right. That's great. So some of it will perhaps look like we're teaching people to suck eggs. We're fine with that. That's good. So what does the PAS not do? It's as important what it does do. What it specifically it does not do, and this comes up a fair amount, is it does not prescribe specific methods for data gathering or target setting. Yeah, agonise long and hard about this, but ultimately we decided that that really does have to be determined by individual projects and programs. But what it does do is reinforce the need for the data to be shared in common interoperable formats, use established metrics where possible, but for all involved to be transparent about the limitations of the data they've got so that better measures can be developed over time. And this really is about putting a line in the sand and moving forward from here. And really, really importantly, what we don't want this PAS to be is something that introduces a whole new, let's call it cottage industry of PAS 4010 compliance checkers. The standard is explicit. The requirements for 4010 need to be embedded into existing reporting, insurance and audit functions. And as we go through the process of refining the PAS, I think is where a lot of the focus is going to be, because this is about strengthening what organizations already do, and good organizations will already be doing a lot of what is in PAS 4010. It might just not be badged PAS 4010. And I think that's really, really important, that when people are looking at it, it feels comfortable and it feels like something that they could do and embed into what they already do. So where are we at? We are right now have reached an important milestone and are about to pass through this important milestone stage, because the draft has been first draft has been reviewed by the BSI led steering group, which has about a dozen nudging towards 20 people on it, who are all drawn from across the spectrum to provide impartial expertise into the work. It brings together people from across the academia, trade bodies, institutions, the whole value chain, to make sure that everyone's view is included. And that has got us to a place where we are now out to consultation. And it's great. We have been out to consultation since the beginning of this month, and it in fact ends tomorrow. So if you have already added your comments to the consultation, and the links are on the slide, fabulous. Thank you very, very much. We've had some really, really great comments and response so far. And if you haven't, well, you've got this afternoon to log on and go take a look and just offer us your thoughts, and really, you know, just can't stress enough, the more comment, the more kind of consensus we get around this standard, the better it will be. So please do take this as your last call to get your comments in. And when you are considering your comments, if you haven't done them already, I think I would just sort of emphasize what I've kind of just said. Really, this is about feeling like something that we can all do. If it feels like something that's just a whole bunch of extra burden and admin, then we've kind of missed the trick, and we absolutely don't want that. So yeah, please do tell us what works and what needs sharpening, and what doesn't. Because this is, as I say, the intention is this will be used on projects for many years to come, and this will drive change in a positive way if we get this right. So please do spend a bit of time this afternoon having a look. So that's the PAS itself, but that is only half the story. Sitting alongside the PAS itself will be a comprehensive guidance document. I'm writing that as well, and we are actually at a key stage of that also, which I'll come on to shortly. But the guidance is really, really, really important. The guidance will really complement the PAS, and this comes back to the fact that, as I say, the PAS has been deliberately written as a specification, so it is clear, it's auditable, and so it is full of shall statements. It tells you what must be done, but because of that, it does not offer much in terms of support and an explanation around why it's been written in the way it has been written, why the requirement is as it is. So the guidance is different. The guidance is there to help all of yourselves, all the organisations out there understand how to do it. And so it is there to make PAS 4010 feel usable, proportionate, and adoptable across the incredibly diverse landscape of UK infrastructure. And so it is being delivered and developed in the same collaborative spirit as the PAS itself. The same steering, the same advisory group is supporting in pulling it together. Again, it's being supported and sponsored, co-sponsored by the ICE and Department of Transport, and the Infrastructure Client Group is also supporting the development of the guidance such that it feels like it's bringing the entire infrastructure sector together. So what is it going to do? And it's going to do a few key things. I mean, as you'd expect, first of all, it's going to be hopefully a really clear, accessible overview of the standard itself, sort of demystifying it, if you like, explaining the structure, the intent, the logic, and importantly, how it fits in with other standards out there and all the kind of ISO kind of information management standards, PAS 2080, the Carbon one. It's there to really kind of ground the standard in the existing landscape. Secondly, and I think probably the most important thing, it will provide practical advice on creating that productivity management strategy, that's the core of the standard. So it'll walk people through how to develop the strategy, what the roles and responsibilities in it will look like, how to embed the governance requirements, how to work collaboratively with the value chain to make it happen, and really importantly, how to tailor it to different types of projects, whether they're new build or renewal or even maintenance projects, and different scale of projects, whether it's a major infrastructure project or a smaller local authority renewal scheme. It will also include in it a number of key case studies from different types of infrastructure, all different sectors, transport, water, energy, and these case studies are going to be drawn from projects that have been delivered before PAS 4010 came into existence, clearly. So what we've been doing is we're reaching out and looking for examples of things that had PAS 4010 been around at the time the project was being developed and delivered. They would have embraced many of the requirements of the PAS 4010, and the case study would explain how they fit to specific clauses within the PAS. So hopefully that's a helpful way for people to sort of get their heads around how to use the PAS in reality. It will provide that key advice on tailoring and proportionality to different projects, and that's come up already in a lot of conversations to make sure it doesn't feel like a burden to a small project or indeed a big project. I think importantly for today's audience, there is a dedicated section in there on how you can use the PAS to introduce innovation into your projects and programs. The standard itself is kind of agnostic on innovation. It's not saying innovation is bad, but it's not saying innovation is good or essential. It's giving the framework around which you can use and introduce innovation in a sensible way into projects and programs. And the guidance document will really kind of it will emphasize and explain how to really kind of use the standard to that end. And currently drafted in, we'll see if it stays in, but currently drafted in is some fairly direct references to work and lean on i3P initiatives to support. So I think there's a good connection going on there. And finally, it's a plain English approach. You know, it talks about explains all the jargon that we like to use in our sector, but it makes it simple and understandable for all. What it doesn't do, it doesn't introduce any new requirements. It doesn't create any new processes or layers of assurance. So again, it's just a standard. It's not there to create a new kind of subsector or sub cottage industry within our industry. And again, just like the standard, it's not introducing rigid methods for types of targets we need to set, types of data we need to collect, or things we need to measure. And again, it just reinforces the principle that the PAS 4010 is there to be embedded into existing reporting, assurance, and audit functions. And it helps explain how to do that. So where are we with the guidance? We're in kind of similar critical places with the standard itself. So we are, and we have just produced the first draft of the guidance, which is going into internal review. We are still looking for case studies. That's really an important thing to stress. We're particularly looking for case studies that sort of amplify how you can use the PAS in the energy sector. So if anyone on the call has been doing some good stuff in the energy space, which feels like it's demonstrating good productivity, I would love to have a conversation with you. And generally, anyone who has got some real great case studies which you haven't yet shared, what we're trying to do is scatter through the PAS lots of sort of mini kind of illustrative examples of how specific requirements are being met. So definitely still looking for some good case studies to go into the standard, into the guidance document itself. And then our intent going forward is we're going to publish the guidance alongside standard in October, but we do want to continually keep the bank of case studies refreshed and up to date. So it is not a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity here. This is an opportunity to continue to think about how we are improving productivity and where the good examples are. And the intention is to keep adding to the guidance with new and better case studies as they emerge. So before I open the floor to any of your thoughts and observations, just a few sort of final thoughts on PAS 4010. I think key messages are really, it gives the industry a specification, a clear, auditable and contractualizable framework for improving productivity, which feels like a great step forward to us. The guidance document will then give us all the means to use it practically, proportionately and confidently. And together they're going to give us something we've not had before, a shared system-wide approach to productivity that's grounded in evidence, aligned with great behaviours and usable across the entire value chain. And with everybody's input through case studies and through your consultation responses and the continued challenge and collaboration we're going to get through the advisory panel and the steering group, I feel actually feeling pretty confident that these documents put together are genuinely going to help our industry become what we all know it can be, and that is world leading. That is what we're after here. So on that hopefully positive note, thank you for listening, and I will happily take any or all of your questions.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. That was really insightful and really helpful to understand a little bit more about PAS 4010.